The galaxy was vast, dark, and dangerous, filled with countless civilizations. Some ruled with wisdom, others with fear, but most believed in power above all. The Varnax Empire was one of the deadliest. Their fleets were enormous, their weapons unmatched, and their armies disciplined beyond imagination. For centuries, they had conquered planets, enslaved species, and crushed anyone who resisted. To them, the galaxy was theirs to take. When Varnax scouts first discovered Earth, they saw what they thought was an easy prize. A small blue planet with primitive life, fragile cities, and no visible defenses. "This species will fall like all the others," said General Korvax, his voice cold and confident. His commanders nodded. The calculations, the simulations, the numbers, they all pointed to a simple conclusion. Humans were weak. But not all who watched humans agreed. The Illyrians, a secretive alien race known for their wisdom, had observed Earth for decades. They saw the humans' strange mix of courage, hope, and stubbornness. They saw something the Varnax could never calculate, a spirit that refused to be broken. The Illyrian Council convened in secret. Their emissary, Arian, a tall figure with silver eyes that seemed to see through lies, stood before the Varnax diplomats. His voice echoed in the metallic chamber, carrying urgency and warning. "You must not attack them," Arian said firmly. "Humans will bleed. They will suffer. But they will never yield. Do not mistake their appearances for weakness. Their courage is unmeasured, their determination limitless. Attack them, and your fleets will fall, your armies will die, and your empire may never recover." The Varnax laughed. It was a sound that made the walls vibrate, full of arrogance. "A primitive species? You speak as if they are gods. We have conquered planets with far greater defenses than this one. Your warnings are meaningless." Arian's eyes burned with intensity. "This is not arrogance. This is fact. Humans fight for one another. They fight for their homes, their children, their dreams. They do not retreat, they do not surrender. You may destroy cities, you may spill oceans of blood, but you will not break them. You cannot calculate the power of a species that fights with heart as much as with strength." The Varnax ignored him. Pride and overconfidence blinded them. Their fleets assembled in the darkness, weapons primed, engines ready. The warships cut through space like sharp knives, heading toward the unsuspecting planet. On Earth, humans lived their lives unaware of the storm approaching. Cities thrived with laughter, work, and dreams. Children ran in streets, lovers held hands under the stars, and scientists debated theories in quiet labs. Humanity's strength was invisible to outsiders. It was in their courage, in their unity, in their refusal to give in to fear. Far above Earth, alien probes scanned the planet. They measured buildings, weapons, and population. They calculated response times and predicted human weaknesses. The Varnax commanders saw only numbers and probability, not the soul behind them. They were about to make a grave mistake. But somewhere in the chaos of the cosmos, human intuition already sensed the danger. Perhaps it was the way birds flew nervously, or the silent alarm of sensors in remote observatories, or the restless feeling in people's hearts. Fear existed, but so did resolve. Humans prepared not with blind panic, but with courage. Arian, watching from his ship in orbit, whispered to himself, "They are ready. They always are. The galaxy must learn what we have seen. Humans may bleed, but they will never yield." As the Varnax fleet approached, the first signs of battle lit the sky. Explosions shimmered in the darkness of space. Humanity's defenders scrambled. Missiles fired, pilots soared into the void, and soldiers prepared for the unimaginable. Earth was about to bleed. The Varnax thought it would be easy, but they had underestimated the one thing that could never be measured: the human spirit. And in the shadows of approaching war, one truth shone brighter than any star: humans will fight. They will survive, and they will never, ever yield. The sky above Earth turned dark as the Varnax warships approached, their massive silhouettes blotting out the stars. The humans on the ground could feel the tension, though most did not yet understand the scale of what was coming. In cities, people hurried to shelters. In military bases, alarms screamed. And in orbit, humanity's few but determined defense fleets prepared for a fight they knew could cost everything. Commander Hale of the United Earth Defense stood on the bridge of the orbital command station, his hands gripping the edge of the console. His eyes scanned the incoming fleet, calculating odds that made his stomach twist, yet his voice remained steady over the comms. "Listen carefully," he said, his tone calm but firm. "They are strong. They are many, but they will never break us. Hold your positions. Protect our people. Fight with everything you have, because that is what it means to be human. The first shots fell. Energy beams streaked across the blackness of space, colliding with the Varnak shields. Explosions erupted in brilliant flashes of blue and orange. Debris rained into orbit, some burning, some drifting silently like stars lost forever. Despite their superior technology, the Varnaks were startled. Their calculations had predicted swift victory, yet humans were everywhere, firing from orbital stations, launching fighter swarms, even using improvised weapons against the invading ships. Every attack the Varnaks made was met with a counterattack, clever, unexpected, relentless. On the surface, human cities braced. Families huddled in basements as sirens screamed. Yet even here, ordinary people became warriors. Civilians used whatever they could find to slow the invaders, to protect their homes. A farmer rigged explosives along highways. A teacher led children to hidden shelters. And engineers hacked alien drones to turn them against their masters. In the midst of chaos, a fighter pilot named Mara darted through the sky in a small battered interceptor. Her hands shook as she gripped the controls, sweat running down her face. Yet determination burned in her eyes. "I will not let them take our home," she whispered. Her ship weaved through laser fire, dodging blasts that could tear her apart in an instant. With skill, luck, and raw courage, she struck a Varnak's frigate, sending it spiraling into a fiery death. On the ground, medic Lena pulled a wounded soldier from the rubble of a destroyed building. His leg was crushed, his uniform soaked in blood. "You're going to make it," she said, her voice steady despite her own fear. "We fight together. That's how we survive. That's how humans endure." Meanwhile, Arian, the Illyrian emissary who had warned the Varnaks, watched from orbit. His eyes glimmered with a mixture of hope and awe. "They understand what I tried to explain," he murmured. "They fight not because they must, but because they refuse to let anything take away what is theirs. That is their power. That is why the Varnaks will fail." The Varnaks, frustrated and enraged, increased the intensity of their attacks. Their warships unleashed volleys of destructive energy, their drones swarming cities. Yet each assault only revealed the human strength. Fighters adapted, ground forces moved with uncanny coordination, and civilians continued to resist with stubborn ingenuity. The planet itself seemed to rise against the invaders as if it shared the spirit of its people. Even as buildings burned and fleets fell, there was a heartbeat of determination across Earth. Humans endured. They bled, yes, but every strike, every loss only strengthened their resolve. The galaxy had never witnessed a species fight like this, fearless, relentless, united. Commander Hale's voice echoed across the planet and space alike. "Hold the line. Protect each other. We may fall, but we will never yield." And in the midst of fire, chaos, and destruction, one undeniable truth shone brighter than any explosion. Humans may bleed, but they will never, ever surrender. The battle for Earth raged on, but something unexpected was happening. The Varnaks, confident and relentless, began to see cracks in their assumptions. The humans, small in number and primitive in technology by comparison, were refusing to crumble. Every strike the Varnaks launched was met with resistance, every plan anticipated, and every attack countered with clever improvisation. On the planet's surface, cities burned, smoke rising like black rivers into the sky. Yet in the heart of the chaos, humanity's spirit blazed brighter than ever. Ordinary people became soldiers, soldiers became heroes, and heroes inspired others to fight. Children helped carry supplies to bunkers, parents shielded their families while warning neighbors, and strangers joined forces to defend what little remained of their homes. Commander Hale coordinated the human defenses from orbit, his eyes scanning the strategic displays. "Keep moving," he ordered, voice calm but firm. "Do not let them pin us down. Strike where they do not expect. Use your minds as much as your weapons. Every life you save, every ship you protect, it matters." In the skies, human pilots executed daring maneuvers that no Varnak simulations had predicted. One squadron, led by Captain Mara, dove through the oncoming firestorm, weaving between missiles and laser strikes. With precise timing, they unleashed a barrage that destroyed a Varnak's command frigate, sending debris spiraling toward the void. Mara's heart pounded, not from fear, but from the thrill of standing against overwhelming odds. "We are human," she shouted into her comms. "We fight because we must, and we fight because we will." On the ground, medic Lena and her team worked tirelessly, dragging the wounded to safety. She treated burns, splinters, broken bones, and worse, but her hope never wavered. "They will never break us," she whispered, helping a trembling child from the rubble. "No matter what, we survive together. That is what it means to be human." Even the Varnax began to notice the difference between humans and every other species they had conquered. Their calculations were failing. Each time they destroyed a city, new fighters emerged. Each time they killed soldiers, more civilians rose to take their place. The humans were like a storm that could not be stopped, unpredictable and relentless. Arian, the Illyrian emissary, watched quietly from orbit. He had warned the Varnax, but now he realized the full extent of the humans' power. "They are extraordinary," he murmured. "They bleed, they fall, yet they rise again. Their strength is not in their technology nor their numbers, it is in their spirit. That is something the Varnax cannot calculate, cannot destroy, cannot conquer." In the midst of the chaos, a young engineer named Ravi discovered an abandoned Varnax drone. With quick thinking and determination, he repurposed it to deliver supplies to trapped civilians. The drone carried food, medicine, and hope, proof that humans adapted faster than their enemies could anticipate. Every small victory, every clever solution became a symbol of resistance that inspired thousands more to join the fight. The Varnax fleet commander Korvax could not understand it. How can such weakness fight with such force? He barked at his officers. "Our calculations are precise. Our weapons are unstoppable, and yet they resist. They persist. They endure." Back on Earth, the people did not have time to answer. They were too busy surviving, too busy defending, too busy proving what the Illyrians had warned. Humans may bleed, but they will never yield, and slowly a shift began. The humans were no longer just defending. They were taking the fight to the Varnax. Small skirmishes became counterattacks. Each victory, however small, sent a message across the stars. Earth was not weak. Earth was alive, and humanity would fight for every inch of it, no matter the cost. As explosions lit the horizon and the screams of battle echoed through the cities, one undeniable truth became clear to all who watched. The humans were rising not just to survive, but to show the galaxy what it truly meant to be unbreakable. The Varnax fleet hovered over Earth like a storm ready to crush everything beneath it. Their weapons glowed, their engines hummed with deadly power, and their commanders believed victory was only a matter of hours. But humans had already begun to change the course of the battle. They were no longer merely defending, they were striking back, and every counterattack shook the Varnax's confidence. Commander Hale paced the bridge of the orbital station, eyes sharp on the displays. "We've held them this far," he said, voice steady, "but now it's time to push. Every attack, every sacrifice counts. Remember, we bleed, but we will never yield." On the ground, humans coordinated like a living machine. Engineers rerouted power to damaged weapons. Medics carried the wounded through burning streets, and soldiers led civilians to safety while returning fire with unwavering courage. Each action inspired the next. Ordinary people became extraordinary because they had to. Fear existed, but it did not control them. Captain Mara led a daring strike against a Varnax supply convoy. Her small squadron weaved between massive warships, dodging torrents of laser fire. "We hit them where it hurts," she ordered, eyes fierce with determination. "For every home they burn, we take one of theirs. For every life they try to end, we fight for 10 more. Her squadron's missiles found their mark, tearing through the supply vessels. Explosions lit the void, and for the first time the Varnax felt the sting of human ingenuity. Ships that had been deemed expendable destroyed critical logistics, leaving parts of the fleet scrambling for resources. Meanwhile, on the planet's surface, medic Lena and her team moved through shattered streets, rescuing civilians trapped under debris. Her hands were bloodied, her uniform torn, but she refused to stop. "Keep moving," she urged a group of frightened children. "You are stronger than you know. Today we fight together, and we survive together." A young engineer, Ravi, had managed to hack into a Varnax drone network, turning enemy machines into carriers of supplies for humans. These drones delivered food, medicine, and ammunition to the hardest-hit areas. Every act of defiance, no matter how small, became a spark that ignited hope across the planet. In orbit, Arian, the Illyrian emissary, watched with quiet awe. "They are doing it," he whispered. "The humans are not just surviving, they are taking the fight to their conquerors. They turn fear into courage, weakness into strength. This is what I tried to warn the Varnax. This is what no calculation can measure. The Varnax fleet commander, Korvax, grew frantic. Impossible, he shouted. Every calculation was perfect. Our weapons are unstoppable, our ships invincible. And yet they strike back. They resist. Korvax's officers scrambled to respond, but every move the Varnax made seemed anticipated. Humans attacked in ways no algorithm could predict. Civilian soldiers and pilots all worked together, moving as one, adapting faster than the Varnax could adjust. Even in the chaos, a small human team led a daring operation to destroy one of the Varnax warship's key engines. Explosions rocked the orbit above Earth as the massive ship began to drift, powerless. The humans cheered, though their celebration was brief. They had more battles to fight, more lives to protect. As the day wore on, the tide of battle began to shift. The Varnax could no longer rely on sheer power alone. Every loss, every destroyed ship, and every clever human maneuver reminded them that Earth was not an easy prize. Humans were not weak. They were unbreakable. Commander Hale looked out at the burning horizon, a grim smile forming on his face. They think they can crush us, he said, voice filled with quiet pride. But they do not understand. We may bleed, we may fall, but we will never yield. And today they will see it. Above the planet, in the silence between explosions, one truth resonated through the cosmos. Humans were no longer merely fighting to survive. They were proving why no species could ever underestimate them. The battle had raged for days, but humans had not wavered. The Varnax, despite their enormous fleets and devastating weapons, were beginning to realize that their calculations had failed. Humans did not fight like any species they had conquered before. They fought with heart, with unity, and with a stubbornness that no machine could predict. Commander Hale stood on the bridge of the orbital station, sweat dripping from his forehead. His eyes were tired, but his mind was sharp. "Listen up," he shouted, voice carrying across the comms. "This is our moment. Every life we save, every strike we make reminds them that humans cannot be broken. We will fight with courage, with cleverness, and with every ounce of strength we have." On the planet below, cities were scarred, smoke rising from countless fires, yet the streets were alive with resistance. Civilians worked alongside soldiers, carrying supplies, tending the wounded, and even rigging improvised weapons. The human spirit refused to be crushed. Every action, every small victory became a spark that ignited hope across the world. Captain Mara led her fighter squadron in a daring raid against the Varnax command ships. They maneuvered through impossible corridors of laser fire and missiles, striking key systems with precision. One by one, Varnax ships began to falter, their coordinated attacks disrupted by humans who were clever, adaptable, and fearless. In the chaos, a young medic named Lena worked tirelessly in a destroyed hospital. Her hands were raw and bloodied, yet she moved from patient to patient with unwavering focus. "We survive," she whispered to herself as she bandaged a soldier's wounds. "We fight, we endure, and we will never give up. That is who we are." Meanwhile, Engineer Ravi and his team had discovered a way to hack into the Varnax communication network. By intercepting orders and feeding false data, they caused confusion and hesitation among the enemy fleet. Ships that were supposed to attack in formation collided, faltered, or retreated. Human ingenuity, resourcefulness, and courage were turning the tide in ways the Varnax could not anticipate. Arian, the Illyrian emissary who had warned the Varnax, watched from orbit with a mixture of pride and awe. "They are extraordinary," he murmured. "No army, no weapon, no calculation can match the power of humans united. They bleed, they fight, they rise again. This is why I warned the Varnax. This is why they will fail." Korvax, the Varnax fleet commander, could no longer hide his frustration. His once confident voice trembled as he barked orders that were ignored or misunderstood by his own forces. "Impossible," he roared. "They are weak, they are few, and yet they resist at every turn. How can this be? On Earth, ordinary humans became heroes. Families rescued neighbors trapped under rubble. Teachers led groups of children through safe corridors. Farmers and workers rigged defenses, turning even simple tools into deadly instruments against the invaders. Every act of courage, no matter how small, was part of a larger wave of defiance that refused to be stopped. In orbit, as Varnax ships fell one by one, Commander Hale's voice rang clear. "They underestimated us. They thought we were weak, that we could be crushed. But they were wrong. We bleed, yes, but we do not yield, and now they will learn that humanity is not so easily broken. As explosions lit the skies and the sounds of battle echoed across Earth, one undeniable truth became clear to all who witnessed it. Humans were not merely surviving, they were rising. Not just with weapons, but with courage, unity, and an unbreakable spirit that no force in the galaxy could extinguish. In every city, in every battlefield, in every heart, the message was the same. Humans may bleed, but they will never, ever yield. The Varnax fleet was reeling. Ships that had once moved like an unstoppable storm now drifted in confusion, crippled and chaotic. Their soldiers, trained to conquer without question, were beginning to see what the Illyrians had warned them. Humans were not just survivors. They were warriors unlike any the galaxy had ever seen. Commander Hale looked down at the holographic display, showing both the battered Varnax fleet and the human defenses still standing. He felt exhaustion clawing at him, but his mind was sharp, his spirit unwavering. "This is it," he said to his officers. "Every moment we hold, every strike we make reminds them that humanity cannot be crushed. We may bleed, but we will never yield. Push forward. Every human life, every act of courage is a message we will not break." On the planet below, the streets were chaos and courage intertwined. Civilians ran through burning avenues carrying the wounded to makeshift shelters. Soldiers fought fiercely, each one determined to protect what remained of their homes. And in the skies above, Captain Mara's squadron darted between falling debris, taking down Varnax warships one after another. Her hands shook from fatigue, but her resolve never faltered. "We fight for every home, every family, every life," she shouted to her squad. "We may fall, but we rise again. That is who we are." Mediclina moved through shattered hospitals, tending to soldiers and civilians alike. She worked tirelessly, her uniform stained with blood, but her heart full of hope. "Every life we save, every person we protect," she whispered as she lifted a child from the rubble, "is a victory. We fight because we love. We fight because we must. That is humanity." Meanwhile, Engineer Ravi orchestrated a series of daring sabotage missions. Using captured Varnax drones, he disrupted supply lines, disabled weapon systems, and created confusion among the enemy ranks. The humans were small in number compared to the vast Varnax fleets, yet their cleverness turned the battle in ways no calculation could predict. Every act of ingenuity became a blow that weakened the Empire's confidence. In orbit, Arian, the Illyrian emissary, could only watch in awe. "They have reached the edge of victory," he murmured. "They bleed, they fall, and yet they rise again. No army in the galaxy has ever faced such determination. This is why I warned the Varnax. This is why humanity cannot be conquered." Korvax, the Varnax commander, slammed his fist against the console, his face twisted in disbelief and rage. "Impossible," he shouted. "We are the strongest in the galaxy. Our fleets are unmatched. And yet they resist. They fight. They endure." Back on Earth, families joined the fight in whatever ways they could. Farmers launched homemade explosives at advancing troops. Engineers hacked enemy systems, and citizens protected each other with courage that refused to break. Every small victory became part of a larger wave of defiance that pushed the Varnax to the edge. As night fell, the skies of Earth were lit with the glow of battle and the fires of resistance. Explosions echoed across the planet, but humanity stood unbroken. Commander Hale addressed the people, his voice broadcast across every available channel. "They thought they could crush us. They thought we were weak, that we would surrender. But they were wrong. We may bleed, but we will never yield. Tonight we fight not just for survival, but for the future of our species." And across every battlefield in every corner of the planet, one truth became undeniable. Humans were not merely surviving, they were winning. Every act of bravery, every clever maneuver, every life saved became proof that the galaxy had underestimated a force it could not calculate. Humans bled, yes. They fell, yes. But they rose again, stronger than before, united, determined, and unstoppable. The Varnax had begun to understand the truth. Humans will bleed, but they will never yield. The Varnax Empire had never faced a challenge like this. Their fleets, once a symbol of absolute power, now floated crippled in orbit around Earth. Warships burned, drones lay in twisted heaps, and soldiers whispered fearfully over comms. For the first time, the conquerors felt doubt, and it terrified them. Commander Hale stood on the bridge of the orbital station, looking at the shattered Varnax fleet. His face was streaked with sweat and grime, but his eyes burned with determination. "This is the moment," he said to his officers. "The galaxy has doubted us, called us weak, said we could be crushed. But we've shown them the truth. Humans may bleed, we may fall, but we do not yield. Not now, not ever. On Earth, the people moved as one. Civilians and soldiers alike fought side by side, turning every street, every building, every improvised weapon into a statement of defiance. Captain Mara led her squadron in one final strike against the Varnak's command ship. They darted through the debris, dodging laser fire, guided by pure instinct and unshakable courage. Mara's hands were steady, her heart pounding with purpose. "This is for our homes. This is for our families. This is for humanity!" The missiles struck true. Explosions rocked the massive Varnak's vessel, tearing it apart from within. Communication signals faltered, engines failed, and the command of the fleet crumbled. The Varnak soldiers realized they were not fighting a weak species. They were facing a force that could not be broken. Medic Lena moved through the streets, her uniform stained with blood, her hands raw from tending the wounded. She carried a child out from beneath a collapsed building, looking into frightened eyes and whispering, "We are human. We survive, we fight, and we never yield." Around her, every human being was living proof of that message. Ordinary lives had become extraordinary. Fear had turned into courage. Despair had turned into hope. Engineer Ravi coordinated a daring orbital operation, hacking remaining Varnak's drones and turning them into a swarm that attacked the fleet from within. Ship after ship was disabled, drifting helplessly in space. Each act of ingenuity, each risk taken, reminded the Varnaks that this battle was not just about weapons. It was about heart, unity, and unbreakable spirit. In orbit, Arian, the Illyrian emissary, watched silently. "At last," he whispered. "They have shown the galaxy what I tried to warn the Varnaks. Humans bleed, they suffer, they fall, but they will never yield. That is their power. That is why no one can ever truly conquer them." Korvax, the Varnak's commander, stared at the chaos around him. Disbelief etched into his face. His voice trembled as he barked orders that went ignored. His empire's pride, once unshakable, was now shattered. The humans had done the impossible. They had turned despair into resistance, weakness into strength, and survival into triumph. Across every battlefield, the people of Earth stood victorious. Cities still smoked, but the smoke was not of defeat. It was of defiance. Every strike they had endured, every life they had lost, had forged a world that no empire could crush. Humans had bled, yes, but they had never yielded. Commander Hale's voice echoed across the planet and space alike, calm yet full of pride. "This is what it means to be human. We fight, we endure, and we rise. We may bleed, but we will never yield. Let every corner of the galaxy hear it. Humanity cannot be broken." As the last Varnak ships retreated, Earth remained. Humans had survived, and in doing so, had carved their place in the galaxy as a species that no one could underestimate. They had proven that strength was not only in fleets or weapons, it was in courage, unity, and the unbreakable spirit that burned in every heart. The fires of battle faded, leaving a world scarred but alive. Children laughed again in the streets. Families hugged and cried. Soldiers saluted one another. And somewhere in the stars, humans looked upward, knowing they had not just survived, they had triumphed. And through it all, one truth shone brighter than any star. Humans will bleed. They will fall, but they will never ever yield.